Welcome back to That's Entertainment, where we go over all the exciting entertainment news from last week, this week. Kicking off, sad news from the US. Unfortunately, the US cinema chain Alamo Drafthouse has filed for voluntary Chapter 11 and agreed to sell its assets to an investor group. As Variety succinctly put it, Alamo Drafthouse Cinema did everything it could to weather the COVID-19 pandemic. It furloughed most of its staff, cut pay for those who remained, rented out theaters for private events, paused costly development projects, leaned on its merchandising business to keep revenue coming in, launched an on-demand movie service, and in the end it was not enough. The company, the largest privately held theatre chain in the US, filed for bankruptcy protection on Wednesday morning. Obviously, very sad to hear this. Alamo is a great chain. Actually, one of my first US experiences when I was over in San Francisco 10 years ago was going to an Alamo theatre in that part of the world, and I was blown away. It's similar to Everyman and Picture House in 2020 in the UK. So hopefully the steam engine doesn't stop with this, that Tim and the team maintain that great brand, but obviously sad news. On a more positive note, New York City has now reopened, albeit at 35% capacity. Total US box office is expected to show an increase of around 14% weekend on weekend. Numbers are still low, but an encouraging signal nevertheless. Disney's latest Raya, The Last Dragon is now available to see in cinemas or at home as a premium premiere access released on Disney+, but it's surprising to see its total box office, estimated to be just over $8 million at the time of recording, will be significantly less than the $14.1 million the new Tom and Jerry movie took the previous weekend. The Warner Brothers film also is available to watch at home on HBO Max, but at no extra cost to the home viewer, as it's included as part of the streaming package. Why the reason for this disparity in revenues? Well, the actual box office revenue is partly because Disney failed to agree terms to play the film on 3 North American cinema chains. These were Cinemark, Harkins in the US, and Cineplex in Canada. It's also partly because Disney Plus has more US subscribers than HBO Max. That's 95 million versus 38 million. These on-demand viewers will generate more cash for the studio. According to an analyst, Anthony D'Alessandro, editor of Box Office at Deadline, Disney gets to keep 100% of whatever they make from their $30 Disney Plus PVOD purchase of Raya. Disney doesn't have to split that PVOD revenue with any exhibitor. Raya's $30 price point on Disney Plus is roughly equivalent to the rental that Disney would get from 5 or 6 movie tickets. Question on everyone's lips is will this strategy of simultaneous release to streaming platform owned by studio and cinema continue? And I think the cat's out of the bag, right? This is definitely the future. The mighty Disney decides to release Marvel's Black Widow the same way in May. Well, I think so. As Anthony D'Alessandro also pointed out, exhibitors are very suspicious since there aren't any trailers for the Marvel movie on Raya this past weekend, only those for Disney's May 28th theatrical release of Cruella. All this has occurred in the same week that Disney's CEO Bob Chapek acknowledged that simultaneous Disney Plus premiere access and theatrical release models would remain an option for the foreseeable future. He also made it clear that the old 90-day theatrical window is a thing of the past. He's quoted as saying, "The consumer is probably more impatient than they've ever been before, particularly since now they've had the luxury of an entire year of getting titles at home pretty much when they want. So I'm not sure there's any going back. Moviegoers won't have much tolerance for a title, say, being out of theatrical for months, just sort of sitting there and gathering dust before being made available digitally." So the windows, I think, are smashed. There's no putting this genie back in the bottle now. Everyone's created their arc in terms of audiences with the likes of Disney Plus, HBO Max, Paramount Plus. It's all coming to the fore. Theatrical is going to have to learn how to play hardball in a new environment. And I think this whole idea of justifying audiences into the theatrical experience, which, as Tim League said from Alamo, is all about the competition for what people do with their night out or their afternoon out if you're younger. So I do think there is a positive future for cinema, but it's going to require a lot of reframing. But one thing they can't count on is the protection of the windows that they had previously. I think that's gone. The Hollywood Reporter has just published its annual report on inter-studio profits. While the publication acknowledges it's difficult to get some figures and difficult to compare figures like for like, their analysts reveal that Netflix to be the big winner, with a revenue up 24% to $25 billion and profit up by 77% to $4.6 billion. We're having a busy week. We've got our second webinar where we're looking at producers and how they can release, or distributors as well, how they can release their films during the lockdown. This is a webinar that we're putting together to look at the independent and studio side of the business and see what innovations are coming out of the technological space, the licensing space. We're going to be quite short with the show this week, so the VOD news is going to be brief, I warn you now. Netflix appetite for new content continues this week. Netflix India reveals plans for 40 new films, series and documentaries. In the latest example of how important family-friendly content is to streamers, Netflix announced plans for an animated Asterix limited series. Well, that's great news. Loved the cartoon as a kid. Can't wait to see that. Which will be available globally sometime in 2023. They also spent an apparently record-breaking $55 million on a single title at the European film market, taking worldwide rights for Christian Bale's thriller, The Pale Blue Eyes. Again, wow, great content, great star. Can't wait to see that either. According to the report for the EFM in Deadline, though, not everyone is happy to see streamers making such deals. A number of dealmakers tell us they are frustrated about being dangled enticing projects only for them to be sold to streamers after they've spent time and effort putting in bids and generating heat for the packages. Buyers are most worried about a scenario in which sellers and packagers insist across the board on so-called buyback clauses in contracts, allowing a film to be flipped to a streamer for a kill fee only in the region of 10%. Just how will the world's theatrical and streaming services come to terms with one another in this new future is the key question. Netflix has the deep pockets. It has the technological capability to ensure audiences turn up and watch these features as well. They understand more about their audiences than anything else, and they know exactly how to price product and content. I'm sure there are multitudes of algorithms that they use in terms of calculating what they're going for based on this incredible data set they've built up. The incredible thing about this is that it does compete with the traditional world of acquisition, where things have moved into almost a Moneyball paradigm now with these buyers on the block. And it's going to be very interesting to see how the industry starts to fight back. Again, as we keep saying, it's all about the audience data. If you know your audiences, then you can justify, you can research, you can look into film briefs, and you can start to make much more valid assessments. I think this whole set of the industry really starts to need to think about how they're going to change in competition with the likes of Netflix, now HBO Max, plus Paramount Plus. Well, here we go. We'll find out soon. That's all for this week. Feel free to like and subscribe. Remember, we post this show to LinkedIn and to YouTube. Share this content with your friends. Comment in the comment section below. We'd love to hear your feedback. And do tune into our webinar on Tuesday. It'll be an exciting one. Some great technologies being discussed. Real future for the independent movie industry, I believe. So join us there. Thank you. Bye-bye.